Hey guys, it's Harmony. I am still learning this YouTube thing, so please bear with me. Please, if you like this sort of content, though, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot. I would love it if you did. Anyway, I've had a campaign that has been gaining quite a bit of traction on Twitter lately, more so than I ever imagined it would, to be honest. I wanted to make a video about what it was, what my players and I did, and talk a little about some of the advantages and pitfalls to running a game this way so that maybe it'll inspire you and you can learn from the mistakes I made. So this video is probably going to be part of a series. This one will be about the initial setup of the campaign, and I will try to do follow-ups that cover the events that happened during the Braunstein portion or the world creation portion and how the gods are continuing to affect the actual campaign. So I think most people watching probably have heard of a Braunstein game. If you haven't, I would suggest watching the Secrets of Blackmore documentary or going on Wikipedia because Wikipedia's article on Braunsteins do it quite a bit of justice. And I don't know if it's pronounced Braunstein or Braunstein. I seem to get picked on no matter how I pronounce it. So please comment and tell me that I am pronouncing it wrong. That's totally cool. I like it. But anyway, a Braunstein is sort of a war game created by David Wesley in the late 60s, where each player is given a role in a fictional college of Braunstein. Each player is trying to work on their own goals, and it's more of a diplomacy war game, sort of a LARP. And they all are taking steps to further their own agendas within a game. Usually, there are no winners declared, though that's sort of debatable. Braunstein games have traditionally been very rules light, and they use an arbiter or judge to resolve conflicts as kind of LARP games, basically, that focus on diplomacy. And this meme I have up on the screen here was made by the curator. I was scrolling through Twitter one day and found it, and I'm always willing to share memes about me. That is my favorite subject for memes. But anyway, I want to share a tweet here that was made in, I believe, December. Yeah, on December 14th by Alchemic Raker. He says, "Okay, hear me out. Campaign Session 1 is a Braunstein of the gods creating the worlds and the things in it, vying for their own domains and creations and resulting in the creation of the campaign world." You can see you can see I commented right below that. This is a fun concept to get players involved in world creation. I wouldn't want to manage it, but I'd have fun playing in this campaign. So this is me saying that I would never run a campaign like this because, as many people have said, the first step to doing something is explaining why you won't do it. But yeah, so I'm running this now. This idea really excited me. Lore created by the players, where the players know just as much about the lore as I do, if not more. So I started drafting rules and structure on this campaign, and this proved to be challenging because Alchemic Raker and the people that he is addressing in this comment do not play the same D&D I play. They play AD&D. I unfortunately do not, and at the time I had read some of the AD&D DMG, but I wasn't familiar enough with the structure and flow of the game to run it. And my players were used to 5e, so I decided that once the Braunstein portion was over, our game was going to be in 5e. This may have been a mistake, but I was already using a Braunstein to create the campaign world, and then once that was created, I wanted to change how I ran the passage of time to 1-to-1, which I might make another video about. So I decided that I didn't want to put all this new stuff on my players at once, and we would go with a system that they were familiar with. I started by making a list of 20 cleric domains that I should have on the screen here. Some of them are in the PHB, some are from other 5e books, and a few are from homebrew books that I thought would be appropriate. The domains I chose were Arcana, Chaos, Commerce, Darkness, Death, Forge, Infernal, Knowledge, Life, Light, Nature, Order, Peace, Prophecy, Spirit, Tempest, Time, Trickery, and War. So there were 20 of them. I originally chose 20 because I wanted to fill out a d20 chart, but really I ended up using cards anyway because they're non-replaceable. So I made 20 cards. They were digital, so I passed them out online. This all took place online. But anyway, I made 20 cleric domains, I put them on cards, and I decided that each player would draw 3 cards at random and pick any 2 to be the domains of the god that they created. Some domains seem to fit together better than others. For example, life and light would be a very Pelor style god, or you can do like nature and peace to be the hippie god. Lots of them you can fit together, but some seemed less able to fit together than others. For example, it might not make sense to have a god of both chaos and order. But I think that a creative mind can probably make sense of about any 2 of these domains. Back to the chaos and order example, you could have a Jekyll and Hyde like god or a god of balance. So once I did this, I started to pitch the campaign structure to my friends. I put together this document, as you can see, that kind of explains what a Braunstein game is. And this was for my players, so they would know what they were getting into. I I selected the group very carefully. Since Braunstein games had some in common with war games, I wanted players that were familiar with war games. My group plays Twilight Imperium. We've played a lot of Twilight Imperium in the past. That is a very heavy war game, and we've had a lot of fun doing it, so I knew these guys would be perfect. If your group is unfamiliar with war games, then you're going to have a different experience from me. I don't know if I would recommend running this sort of campaign with players who are not familiar with war games. If they are only used to conventional D&D story games, they might not enjoy the idea of PvP in their games, which this may involve. So what I'm saying is if you intend to run a campaign like this, choose your players carefully. The campaign structure is not for every type of gamer, and that is okay. So I told my players to imagine a fusion of a war game and the D&D games that they were used to. One where they would get to help create the Pantheon and lore and affect the world as gods, but they would also be playing in the world as characters. I told them that the initial setup of the campaign would be a rules-light war game and that we would eventually take it into a D&D campaign where they would know more about the lore than I did. I also said that this was very likely that the campaign could support multiple DMs, and they may all run portions of the world that they created, but it would all be using the same rule set. After each player joined the game and obtained their 3 random domains and picked 2 of them, I asked them to record specific information about the god they were creating. This part was difficult as I didn't really know what to ask, but I I asked them some questions to prompt them to create some lore. Let's see, I have written down the questions I asked. I asked them for the name of their god, the domains that they chose, their alignment. I did put some restrictions on alignment, but I wasn't too strict on what domains could be what alignment. I didn't really want to restrict creativity more there. But they had to come up with their alignment, give me some art. And I asked them for the types of followers they had. So that might be like dwarves or elves, or it could also be people that were born with a magical aptitude, or mothers or blacksmiths. It sort of depends on the god. And I also asked them for some additional lore as well as an artifact. The artifacts, I wasn't really sure what I'd use it for, but I figured it could be something big in game, like maybe the god of death has a magical scythe or something like that. But I also asked them for terrain types. Now, that was kind of Magic the Gathering. I shamelessly lifted the terrain from Magic the Gathering. I asked for one that their god was strongest in and one that their god was weakest in. And I also asked them for a bit of lore on top of that, whatever they wanted to give me. I didn't know how much to expect from my players there. They surprised me. They spent all week after this in Discord talking about what they were going to do. And I ended up with some people gave me like pages of lore. It was ridiculous. More lore than I knew what to do with. I don't know if everyone would have the same experience that I did there, but that's how it began for me. Now, I did give them one rule with their gods once they drew their domains, and that was they could not show their domains to anyone else. They could tell each other what their domains were, but they couldn't show. because I wanted to protect anyone who chose to lie about their domains to others, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to hide information if they chose to do that. Now, there were 6 players originally. I had a seventh come in later, but for the original Braunstein portion, there were 6 players. And what it produced, the first player drew the domains Spirit, Forge, and Tempest. Of those, he kept Spirit and Forge and made Ognir, the god of the dwarves. The second player drew into Light, Infernal, and Twilight. She kept Light and Infernal and made the god Keperzal, the goddess of fire. The third player drew into Commerce, Death, and Order. He kept Death and Commerce and made Mortir, the god of death and taxes. The fourth player drew into Arcana, Chaos, and Trickery. From those, he combined Arcana and Chaos and made Krikthi, the spider goddess of magic and monsters. The fifth player drew Knowledge, War, and Time. He kept War and Time and made Kamaris, the eternal conflict. And the sixth player drew Darkness, Life, and Nature. He kept Darkness and Life, making Vita Theos, the alchemist god that had the power to create life from shadows. As part of the setup, I needed a starting map. I went to Incarnate and I generated 3 random maps. My original plan was to have players who picked the nature domain pick one of the 3 as a starting point, but that domain was discarded, so I had players vote on a starting map instead. Once one of them was picked, and we went with this one right here, but these were the other 2 that were not picked. Once one of them was picked, I made a list of all the natural domains, which were light, darkness, time, tempest, nature, and twilight. I intended to consult the players who controlled those domains to help determine the starting terrain of the world, but in my game, all of those ended up as discarded domains except for darkness, light, and time. The player who controlled time helped decide the rock formations, mountains, and the age of the world. The player who controlled light also controlled the infernal domain, and she wanted to scorch the world from the get-go, while the player that controlled darkness wanted to shroud the world in shadow and protect it from the sun. So the 2 of them had to roll to determine this, and the light player overwhelmingly won the roll-off. So the world started with vast deserts, and the god of darkness was pretty well restricted to the underground early on. For my part of the pre-Braunstein setup, I put the map into Roll20 and I added a hex overlay. I then familiarized myself with Incarnate so that I would be able to make quick edits on the fly as the situation was changing in game. I planned to stream my screen as I was doing so to the players so that they could see the map changing in response to their orders round by round, though I uploaded several iterations of the map to the VTT on the fly. I also made a table of random wonders that could be found in the world. I rolled 5 wonders and hid them on random hexes. They are marked by the X's on the G. I also made a table of random events, one for the early game and one for the late game. The tables included things like natural disasters, invasions of monsters, rifts to other planes, prophets that could give a god hidden information, and new races of people that could arise. Or maybe even a godlike being like a dragon or a kraken that declares himself a god, or several other events. The events were intended to unbalance the game and add a little bit of drama when they appear. One would be drawn at the beginning of each round in the world building section of the campaign, and we would just go from there. This was the initial pre-Braunstein setup. The actual Braunstein portion of the campaign will be covered in another video that I hope to release soon. I'm new to this whole YouTube thing, so it takes me a while. I would appreciate if you could subscribe to the video if it inspired you at all. I'm still learning how to run a game like this. It's a continuous process, so I'm sure there are things that I got wrong or that I flubbed completely. So if you want to let me know what I could have done better, please leave a comment. I'm always open to feedback. Thanks, guys.